Hello, fellow human. This is day 29 of my 30-day Talk to Camera challenge. Today, I'm going to teach you the top 5 questions your project team needs to be able to answer on day 1. And since many of you know that I'm treating my upcoming Camino like a project, I'm going to answer these questions for you. This is really important to align your stakeholders and make sure everybody's pointed in the same direction and that we're all clearly focused on the same goals and understand the reason many of these decisions about the project were made before we got involved. So, the first most important question you want to ask is, what's the scope of the project? What are we doing? What are we creating? What are our deliverables? The reason we want to answer this question is because there's a little bit of context. It's not only what we're doing as a project team, but what problem are we trying to solve for the organization, or perhaps what opportunity are we trying to take advantage of? This will allow us to more clearly understand why we're doing the specific things we're doing. And it'll give us a broader context when we have discussions about what else we could add, what things we want to modify in that scope, or perhaps what things aren't necessary after all. The second most important question we need to be able to answer as a project team on day 1 is, what is our budget? Of course, you need to know how much money does the project team have to spend? How many resources are at your disposal? But more importantly, or at least equally importantly, is understanding what's the value to the organization in completing this project? What kind of ROI are they expecting? What kind of cost savings do they think are going to be a result of what this project team does? Again, that allows you to have more well-informed and broader context conversations when it comes to things like budget adjustments or budget savings or changing resources. The third most important question you want to be able to be able to answer as a project team is, what is our schedule? When is this expected to be done? And equally as important is, what is driving that date? Is it arbitrary? Does it align with some sort of fiscal quarter end or beginning? Is there a future project which is dependent on the results of this project? Again, it's good to have this information because you know the background of why the decision was made. And then in the future, it will allow you to have better conversations regarding dynamic schedules, which they all are. These 3 things are 3 of the most important things. You've heard me talk about it as the iron triangle: scope, schedule, and budget. And it's really important to understand why these values exist for your project, so that when changes are going to be made to the project, and they will be made, whether it's a budgetary change, a schedule change, or a scope change, you know on day 1 what is most important, and you know where there's areas of negotiation. Things have to be pliable, if you remember, when it comes to change, if you want to maintain the same level of quality. The fourth thing you want to talk about as a team and be able to answer is, what are the major risks? Where can this go wrong? And how do we prevent that? The reason it's really important to talk about this on day 1 is because you will never have as many interested and engaged stakeholders that are searching for alignment among the group as you will on day 1. Being able to have discussion about the high level risks, having that conversation with this group of engaged stakeholders, whether it's a project team, executive stakeholders, client side sponsor, whatever the case may be, it allows you to hear what's on their mind. What are they worried about? When you are able to understand what everybody else is worried about, what values they place on the outcomes of the project, then you have a much better chance of building a good relationship with this particular stakeholder. A little bit of communication goes a long way. And if you can hear what's on top of mind for everybody and address it, you're starting off on the right foot. The last and arguably most important question you need to be able to answer on day one is the toughest. And that is, what is our definition of success? Let me explain why. In traditional PM methodologies, a project is considered successful if you meet all the scope or deliverables on time and within budget. I would argue that that is not a good way to measure success. Here's two examples. I was project manager of a team. The project was to deliver a piece of software for a marketing team. We completed the project. We delivered all the pieces of scope. We delivered it under budget. We delivered it ahead of schedule. But as we were turning it over to the client, they had a reorganization. Their department head got canned. The project champion and the project sponsors got canned. And the new person that was in charge decided they weren't going to use that software that we built. So the organization, the client organization, spent money, spent manpower, invested a lot of effort into the change management process that the organization was going to undergo, and all for nothing in the end. So they failed to capture any value from all of that work. I don't see any way that that could be considered a success. On the other hand, I've also been a project manager of a project that went slightly over budget, and we missed the schedule by a few weeks. And we actually didn't even deliver everything that we thought we were going to on day one. In traditional terms, that should be seen as an absolute failure. But what happened was, after we turned it over to the client, it was only a matter of a couple months before their new processes were in place. Their employees' quality of life had increased because of the ease that the software provided and the clarity of the process. And the organization captured a massive amount of value for the investment they made. So I would consider that a success. So those are 5 questions that are most important to be able to answer on day one, because you want to make sure everybody understands what is happening, why it's happening, when it's happening, and who's involved. Providing that clarity to your project team and maintaining that level of clarity throughout the life cycle of your project is going to go a long way towards it being a success, whether or not you met individual metrics along the way. Regarding my upcoming Camino, you'll know that I struggled with my definition of success. And what it boiled down to after a lot of thinking and reflection was that as long as I show up and I open myself to the experience with a good mindset and I avoid disaster, then I should be able to consider whatever happens a success, no matter how far I walk, where I start, where I finish, what kind of things happen to me along the way. As long as I do the work, have the right attitude, and nothing terrible happens, I think I should consider it a success. When it comes to scope, what am I doing and what opportunity am I trying to take advantage of for me? Mainly, it's being able to take advantage of attempting something that's going to take me 6 weeks where I can't work. This is rare for me, and now is the time to do it. When it comes to budget, I was able to set a budget initially. I did a bunch of different estimating to make sure that my project was going to fall within the budget, and I have a decent contingency. When it comes to schedule, I chose the start date and the end date so that I could be done and back and decompressed and debriefed in plenty of time for my wife and I's 10th anniversary. It was important that I be back for this one and celebrate with her because we're such a great team. And she's been so great to allow me to take 6 weeks away and handle everything at home for me while I do this Camino. So that's how I dictated my schedule. That's what was driving the schedule there. I've still got a little bit of flexibility, but at least I know why I chose that date. And then the last thing, which is, how can this go wrong and how do we avoid that? I've built a risk register for this, and I may in a future video review some of those things. It came from experiences from other pilgrims, my own personal experiences, little ChatGPT, so generative AI. I used all of them to identify the major risks and figure out what I can do to help prevent them from happening. So that's day 29. Tomorrow is the last day. See y'all then. Ciao.